With that of evolution, although it originated from biology and describes how a group of organisms managed to change over time based upon the environmental pressures they faced, the same concept of change over time can be applied to that of non-biological concepts such as society as a whole, or to that of a particular game. So with that said, even the word and concept of evolution has evolved over time, showing that evolution is an important paradigm to both science and society, even if some people vigorously fight against this idea. This can be seen with how modern-day chess went through multiple iterations before reaching its modern form. Greetings and welcome back to Checkpoint Gaming, Chess. With this episode, we will be going over Courier chess. With Courier chess, it was a popular version of chess within Europe, especially that of Germany, between that of the 12th and 18th centuries, and was played alongside that of other versions of game, such as Shatranj, and has persisted well into the modern day. The novelty of this version of the game has to do with the piece that is known as the Courier, which acted much like that of the bishop in modern chess. In addition to the Courier, this version of the game also includes that of the sage and the jester, and is played upon an 8x12 grid board that is set up so that it is longer than it is wide. The game also comes with 48 pieces, with the players possessing 24 pieces each. With the piece count, they consist of 1 king, 1 medieval queen, 1 sage, 1 jester, 2 couriers, 2 medieval bishops, 2 knights, 2 rooks, and 12 pawns. With the pieces for this given game, they can be divided into 2 categories, those that are familiar to modern players of chess, at least as of the writing of this episode, and those that are unique to this version of the game. First, let's take a look at the pieces that are familiar and found in modern chess. With the king, it moves 1 square in any direction the player wishes. In addition to this, he's unable to engage in castling and will have to always move so that he isn't in a position where he can be captured. With the knight, it is able to move 2 squares along the same rank or file followed by 1 square over, thus creating a right angle in an L-shaped pattern. And this formula can be that of 2, then 1, or 1 and then 2. It just depends upon what the player wants along with what is available. They are also unable to be blocked by the presence of another piece. With the rook, it is able to move to any desired number of squares that is found along the rank or file from the square that it is currently located. With the pawn, it is able to move 1 square forward, but in order for it to perform a capture, it will have to move 1 square diagonally forward. But unlike that of the pawn found in chess, this pawn isn't able to move 2 squares forward as part of its first move, and when it reaches that of the square of promotion, it is only able to be promoted to that of a queen. With that taken care of, let's take a look at the unique pieces. With the Courier, which the game gets its name, it can move any desired number of squares that is found along the diagonal from the square that it is currently located and is unable to jump over any of the other pieces. With the medieval bishop, which is not to be confused with the Courier, it moves exactly 2 squares diagonally and is able to jump over a piece that is found standing in its way. With the medieval queen, it is only able to move 1 square diagonally. With that of the sage, it moves just like that of the king, but it is able to be captured just like that of any other piece. And finally, we have the jester, which is able to move to any desired number of squares that is found along the rank or file from the square that it is currently located. With the initial positioning of each piece upon the board, it consists of the following. On the near row of each player, each rook is found upon the far square, the knights are on the adjacent squares, the medieval bishops are on the squares next to them, the couriers are on the square after that, the jester is found next on the queenside half of the board, while the sage is found in the kingside half of the board, and the king and medieval queen upon the center, 2 squares with the king found upon their respective color. With the pawns, they're found upon the second nearest row to the player with 1 pawn found within each square. It is worth noting that with the sage, jester, medieval queen, and king, they are all positioned directly facing each other on the board in this initial setup. At the beginning of the game, each player is able to make 4 peculiar moves. With the 3 pawns that are found in front of the 2 rooks and the medieval queen, they can move 2 squares forward with the medieval queen also being able to move 2 squares forward so that it is positioned right behind the pawn that was initially found in front of it. From there, the player will alternate play with each subsequent move after these initial special moves being in accordance with that of their normal move. When engaging in capturing, it is done by moving a piece into a square that is occupied by an enemy piece. When performing a capture, all pieces do it as part of their normal movement, except for that of the pawns, which were addressed earlier. If a player's king becomes threatened with capture, then the opposing player is to say, check, with the player having to engage in an action so that their king is no longer threatened. But if this isn't possible, then their king is in checkmate and the game is over. Even if the king isn't found in immediate danger of being captured, if any move exists where it is able to be captured, then said player has lost the game. Sorry, Charlie. And if a pawn manages to reach the opposite side of the board, then it is to be immediately promoted to that of a medieval queen, which seems like a common theme with these predecessors of chess. Yes, that given pawn gets promoted, but to a relatively weak piece with no option given to the player on what piece they might actually wish to have the pawn get promoted to. And if it's determined that neither player has the means of winning the game, then it is deemed to be a draw. So, with that said, that is what you need to know about Courier chess. With that taken care of, we can start talking the rules of Xiangqi. If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a like, and if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode, and happy gaming.